you ever left in the middle of a date? If so, why? Story 1, she was from a nuclear family with lots of money. In itself, not a bad thing. However, she proceeded to go on a rant about trashy people from divorced, remarried, and single-parent families, and how those people would never amount to anything. That sort of thing. She also mentioned how she could tell I was from a traditional family with wholesome values, not some loser raised by a slutty single mother or influenced by a runaway, deadbeat father, her words, because I was clearly raised right. At this point, I get up from the table, track down the waitstaff, and ask for separate checks, as she proceeds to call me in for not paying for her meal and acts confused about why. I tell her not to contact me again, but that I'll be sure to pass on to my single mother that people are noticing how well she raised me. Edit, so I got gold? I don't know what it does or what I'm supposed to do with it, but if there's a way to pay it forward, I guess that'll do nicely. Thanks, anonymous benefactor. Edit again, so I got a second gold and grateful, don't get me wrong, but it's not like I really did anything. Also, I'm sorry I can't respond to everyone. There are a lot of comments to which I'd love to respond, but, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, other things take priority over Reddit, usually. Story 2, he turned up drunk and brought pictures of his time in Iraq in the army with him, that he took me through painfully slowly, one by one. I politely excused myself to go for a cigarette, and he lost it, accused me of being rude, shouting about how no wonder I was single, and then sat on my coat so I couldn't run away, saying that even if I did leave, he would follow me and make me sorry. He also goes on a rant about how all graduates are entitled dickheads. He doesn't agree with women going to uni, and that I'm a middle class. He had insisted on paying for my drink, so when I came back and I said I wanted to go, and he insisted that I owe him a drink, cause he was going up Camden to meet his mates and didn't want to be behind on the drinks front. Fine, whatever, he's clearly insane. They'll just buy him one to shut him up, then I can leave. At the bar, he begins throwing ice at the barmaid when her back is turned. Then when she turns around accusingly, points at me, and says she did it, the barmaid and I both know that it was him. After he has his pint in his hand, he goes back to the table, and I confess to said barmaid that I'm on the worst date of my life and want to run away. She pours me a shot of tequila, tells the bouncer to distract him, then helped me run away as he banged on the window and shouted, "He'll find you." Ran home. Sobbing like a lunatic, I met a guy on Grindr. Turns out his profile picture was 10 years out of date, and he was about 100 pounds heavier. But I decided to give it a chance anyways, because I didn't want to be rude. His first question was if I liked to drive my car barefoot. Then he complained that his dinner smelled like niggers. I left immediately. Story 3, yes, we met at a nicer restaurant, sat down, and had a decent conversation. We started to look over the menu and the wine list. I asked if she had a preference regarding the wine. She said no. I ordered a bottle of Pinot Grigio, since I didn't know her preferences or what she might order, kind of nice middle-of-the-road selection. When it came, the waitress brought 2 glasses, did the usual tasting, and when she went to pour my date a glass, she quickly declined. The waitress poured me a glass and left. I asked her if she'd prefer another drink. She locked into what I can only describe as a temperance lecture. She was stridently anti-alcohol, and my ordering wine had clearly upset her. This was a first date, so I had no way of knowing any of this, and had she let me know her thoughts ahead of time, say, when I asked her preference or when I was ordering, I'd have gotten something acceptable to her. Instead, I was getting a lecture that would not stop. I got called a drunk and rude and insensitive repeatedly by someone I just met in the course of about 5 minutes. After a few minutes, the waitress came over and asked if everything was okay. I told her no, told my date that our date was over, and asked the waitress if I could be reseated at the bar. The waitress and my date both looked shocked. My date picked up her sweater and purse and stalked out. I picked up my glass. The waitress picked up the bottle and led me to the bar. In the bar, I met a very nice young lady with different ideas, and we shared the bottle and a very nice evening. Story 4, had been on a couple of dates with this guy. At his place, watching a movie, he climbs on top of me. I tell him I'm not comfortable. He does it again, adding I like shy girls, date over. Story 5, I took a girl once to my favorite Mexican restaurant. She proceeded to pretty much give me a rundown of her past 5 boyfriends, why the relationship failed, how each was in bed, what they all did for a living, where they all took her for vacations. My eyes started to cross, and my blood was starting to boil. I was relegated to unhus, and wow. That guy's in responses, she seemed very disinterested in anything I had to say, and I was done. As I was about to get up and walk out, the waiter brought my fajitas, so you know what, I just rolled with it, started asking questions about her ex-boyfriends. All the while, I was stuffing my face with tasty, tasty fajitas. Honestly, most of the dudes sounded like pretty good guys, but I put on a brave face and talked them in between bites. Once I was full, I got up, said I needed to go to the bathroom, paid for my half of the meal at the register, and just left. She was busy texting someone and didn't even notice on my way home. She texted me and asked me where I was, told her that I left, and that maybe she should ask one of her ex-boyfriends to come and pick her up since she spent the last 45 minutes doing nothing but talking about them. Got a couple urine texts on the drive home. But it's been radio silent ever since. TLDR, damn it. Now I want steak fajitas. Story 6. I left in the middle of the movie once. The date was going great, but I forgot that I had left a pot pie in the oven in my apartment. Only broke college guys and old people eat pot pies. I remembered a few minutes in and whispered something along the lines, I gotta get my pot pie out of the oven, so I don't burn down my apartment. I'll be right back. I did return, but she was pissed. Thought we could go see the pot pie and have a laugh. Arrived at my previously empty apartment to find my brother and the neighbor girls drunk and naked in my living room. Showed her the pot pie, and she said something along the lines of, "You're take me home." Story 7 had joined a new sports club, and there was one guy who was quiet and kind of just hung around the periphery of the group. I felt kind of bad for him, so was always trying to bring him into conversations and talk to him. One night we all went out for drinks after the game, and I talked to him for a while. Conversation was hard work, but he seemed like a nice guy. He texted and asked me if I wanted to go out for coffee. I wasn't really interested, but knew given how quiet he was that it probably took a ton of nerve to text me that, and I thought maybe in an 11 environment he would be more comfortable and I could get to know him a little more. We met at the coffee shop, and he had a big backpack with him. We ordered drinks, then chatted, with me again doing most of the talking. He rarely initiated, but would answer questions about 12-hour, and he said he had a few things to show me to let me get to know him better. He then did a show and tell from his backpack, pulling out various items and pictures and telling me about them. Some were kind of interesting, a family trip, and some I had no idea how to respond to. Here is a picture of how I had my hair cut in grade 8. He had stuffed animals and lots of items from his childhood. I kept trying to bring the conversation to the present to find out if the item linked to a current interest or hobby, but he kind of had the story about each item rehearsed, and he would go right back to the show and tell. Eventually the table was full of stuff, and I tried to politely say that I had seen enough and change the topic. He told me it still had more to show me. I ended up saying I felt sick and left. I felt kind of bad, but it was just getting too weird. Story 8, this was a third date. He was a nice enough guy, an editor at the local newspaper. We're at his house, and he's made me dinner, and suddenly he drops in normal conversation that his fetish is having with girls that are unconscious. I immediately stopped eating, stopped drinking, and made my exit. I did not get roofied, but was I scared that it was in the card for that night. Edit, his exact words were, "You're so sexy. I'd love to share something with you, since we seem to be hitting it off. Yada, yada, yada." I excused myself to the bathroom and pretended to get an emergency call. He got arrested 2 years later for being a peeping Tom, then moved away. I swear this happened. I met some real weirdos when I was doing the OK Cupid thing. For instance, met a guy that said a black panther was his spirit animal, and that she came to him in his dreams. Sometimes she told him to do bad things to people, but she was okay with me. That one never got a second date, but I saw his engagement notice in the paper a year later. Story 9 at it. Hey, I know this is strange, but I got a message asking to use this comment in an online magazine, and I felt really terrible imagining the guy see it. I declined, but I also decided to delete my answer. Doesn't make for a fun thread, but I didn't realize it'd blow up this much. Story 10, on a date with this girl from the local college. Things are going all right at first. She's looking for something purely physical, to which I had no objections, so she suggests we go back to her place. The apartment is kind of a hole, sparsely furnished. Her burnout roommate is rolling a blunt on the coffee table in their dimly lit living room by himself. Empty 40 bottles all over. Still, no objections. I can get down with some grimy rock, to an extent. So we go to her room and start making out. She puts on some music. We begin taking our clothes off. Just when things are getting really hot, she excuses herself to the bathroom. She's gone a while, maybe 5 minutes. So now I'm getting bored. I get up, start checking out the books on the shelf. Then I step on something, and it sticks to my foot. I pick it off. It's a little 2 square of tin foil, all burnt on one side. Then I notice the used-up tea candles in the trash, and the spoon, Q-tips, and steel wool on the desk. It's not subtle. This chick is a junkie. I'm still waiting for her to get back from the can so I can politely excuse myself. When it occurs to me, she's taking so long she's probably passed out. I go knock on the door, no reply. Knock again. What the fuck? I'm almost done. I know what you're doing in there. Yeah, so what? You can't judge me. You're making it pretty easy to judge you, actually. Oh, go yourself. Great idea. Enjoy your heroin. I can hear her scrambling to put her kid away and clean her up, but there's really nothing left to be said. I go back to the bedroom, put my shoes on, and casually leave through the window, so I won't have to say anything to her creepy roommate. She starts blowing up my phone almost immediately. Where are you? What ST are you on? Come back. Let's talk. It's NBD. You'll pick you up. She had given me a ride there and was now driving around looking for me. Thankfully, a close friend of mine lived on that same block, and he was home. So I just walked in Kramer style and explained the situation. Hi, dude. Sorry to bother you. My date's on a bunch of dope and is following me around trying to convince me to give her the D. Can I hang out here for a half hour? Never heard from her again. Friend gave me a beer. Edit holy gold. It's my first time. They'll never forget you. Story 11, it was an OkCupid date, and we met for coffee after talking a while. He had a sour look on his face when I got there, so I wasn't expecting too much. Where coffee came out, he said, I'm glad you didn't ask me to pay for that, because I don't think you should be drinking something with that many calories. I'm a fat person, but he was way fatter than me, so I thought he was being self-deprecating. I was prepared to roll my eyes and let it go. But then he ranted for about 15 minutes about how women were getting too fat and how they should be pressured to lose more weight. Eventually, I stopped him with a "you saw my picture. Why did you even agree to coffee?" His answer was, I was hoping you had lost weight since the picture was taken, because no one would put themselves on a dating app in that condition. Story 12, she would not stop talking about babies. Her friends had them, her sisters had them, her brothers had them, and made sure it was perfectly crystal clear she did not have one. Yikes. Story 13, blind date, Indian restaurant. First thing he does is produce a folder of photos of him and various celebrities. Shows me them, one by one. He keeps clutching at me. After about 15 minutes of this, I say, this isn't really, I don't think we're compatible. I think I should go, and get up to leave. He stood up too and shouted at me as I left. No, I did not look back. Ed, this happened in the mid-1980s, so unless the guy you're thinking of is now in his 70s, it's not him. Yes, a real manila folder with 8x10 glossies in a real manila envelope. Mid-1980s, no Photoshop, no iPhone. The two celebs I remember seeing are Jimmy Carter and the Dalai Lama. Remember, this was 30 years ago. No, I don't remember what he was shouting. I was focused on GTFO of there. And as I said, 30 years ago, no, I don't remember which Indian restaurant, but it was in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Yellow walls, yes, he was a Harvard man, no, he was not blind. A blind date is when somebody fixes you up with somebody you don't know, or when you go out with somebody you've met via dating service or ad. No photos back then, just descriptions. Also, I am so glad this entertained you all. My operating principle re-nightmare experiences is this is God's way of giving us drinking stories. You've proved me right. Story 14, I told her I was colorblind. She recoiled and said it was gross and sat there looking at me like I had the plague or something. I just sort of got up and left. It was really odd. I don't think she was racist. It was more of a cripple kind of disgust, I think. I don't really know. Story 15, a couple times. The most memorable was when the guy put his hand on my thigh and whispered just so, for later, I'm HIV positive. Edit, to put this in context, it was my first time meeting this guy, and the date wasn't going particularly well to begin with. It was equal parts presumptuous and creepiness that was off-putting. Story 16, picked up a girl for a first date. On the drive to eat, she's tapping away on her phone a few times. Get to the place to eat, sits down, tapping away, texting. A few minutes later, texting again. I excuse myself to use the bathroom and leave. Story 17, and try and make a point about why feminism is awful during a first date. He asked me if I'd rather be raped or sent to prison for 20 years. Not exactly sure what he was trying to explain there, but I left instead of answering. Story 18, OkCupid date. Emailed back and forth, had some common interests, seemed like we would get along. We met up and got food, a couple drinks, seemed to be getting along well. Then he starts talking about how good he is at karaoke. He's been in contests and won first place. He and his friends go all the time, etc. I tell him I've only done karaoke a few times, when very drunk and with a big group of friends. I also mention that I'm pretty sure I'm tone deaf. He tells me there's a karaoke place only 1 block away. I tell him I'm not interested. He tells me you get your own little booth. No one else will even hear you. You can pick whatever songs you want, no waiting, while other people sing. It's clear he's not giving up. So I grab 2 shots of vodka and say, fine, I'll try it. We go to the karaoke lounge and get our booth, and he does 3 or 4 songs perfectly. I start my first song, and he starts criticizing me and pointing out what I'm doing wrong while I'm trying to sing. Then he picks up the other mic and starts singing over me. I say this and just get up to leave. He chases after me and tells me, I need you to pay for half of this. It's $60. I look at my wallet, take out the only cash I had, and said, hey, raise 20, and you can go yourself. Then he follows me to the bus stop and try to make idle chit-chat while I wait to get the away from him. Edit, thanks for the gold. Story 19, met a guy online who lived about an hour away. We agreed to meet up closer to me, and he told me he was just going to stay in town that night. I figured he had friends here or whatever. He gets to the date, and he is clearly about 15 years older than his picture represented. I figured I would finish the meal, then GTFO. After dinner, he insisted on walking me to my car. I then said, okay, so we'll just follow you back to your place then. I was quite shocked and a little scared for my safety. So I said okay, and then ripped out of that parking lot before he could get to his car. He texted me an hour later and told me he was home lol. Never heard from him after that. Story 20, she kept using the word infer when she obviously meant imply. I know some guys would put up with that kind of thing, but frankly, I can't imagine why. Story 21, yep. Got set up with a guy total striped shirt, bro. I knew he wasn't my type, but figured what the let's try something new. He took me out to the standard date restaurant in my city, which is boring, but the food is good. Then all he could talk about is how amazing his alma mater, Ohio State, is, and how much Michigan sucks. Miraculously, at some point, he asked about my family. I gave him a quick rundown and mentioned my female cousin was married with a couple kids, asked what her husband did, and I said her wife stayed at home with their children. And he responded with, "Oh, she's a les. Was she abused as a kid? I mean, that gay isn't normal. So that sucks, you have to deal with it." Instead of arguing and questioning him, I just got my up and left. I didn't even say a word. The look on his face was incredulous. To this day, I can't hear or see anything about Ohio State University without thinking about that piece of Story 22 EW. Yes, Tinder date. Did not look much like his pics, was not interesting at all. I had to carry the conversation, and he kept looking at me in this weird way. It was as though he was imagining skinning me. Then the skin as he screams out his mother's name with his ferrets watching. I ended the date prematurely because my housemate got tickets for this thing. Luckily, I had a stroke of genius at the start of the date and mentioned I couldn't stay long, so it was only fairly obvious instead of blatantly. Edit okay. So some of you have said he was probably just nervous and could be a decent person. Previous experience has taught me not to ignore creepy or weird vibes. Story 23, I didn't realize I was on a date. My coworker mentioned we should grab dinner while finishing up a project we were working on, which seemed like a good idea because it was after work and I was hungry. While I was reading over his draft, he asked me how serious are things with you and your fiancé. Well, we set a date and I have a dress fitting coming up, so pretty serious. Story 24, we have been on a couple of dates and he invited me to his house to watch a movie. I showed up and he immediately brings me in. I don't like vodka. And I wasn't in the mood to drink, but I thanked him for the drink, and I sipped on a little. He commented that I wasn't drinking fast enough. I said, "Oh, well, I'm not really in the drinking mood." He kept pressuring me to drink. I inspected my glass to make sure there was no residue or anything else in it. There wasn't, but when I finished, he made me another without asking. I thanked him, but said that I really didn't want another. He told me not be rude, and that I should have drinks with him if he's making them for me. When I finished that one, I said I really don't want another. He brings me another. It's obvious that he's trying to get me drunk. He keeps trying to make out with me, and I said that I really wanted to watch the movie. He keeps literally pulling my face towards him and shoving his tongue down my throat. I turned the other way on the couch, so I had my feet down by him, and he couldn't get to my face. He then gets on the floor and walks on his knees to my face and starts trying to kiss me again. I said I needed to go to the bathroom. I quietly called my best friend and told her I need her to call me back with something urgent in a couple of minutes so I could get out of a bad date. She did, and I took off. After that, they kept trying to call and text me a lot, and I just told them, "Look, you were obviously trying to get me drunk," and kept forcing kisses after I said I wanted to watch the movie. This is not going to work out. I was in grade 11, and she was in grade 9. Super cute girl who made me smile and feel alive after a horrible breakup a few weeks earlier. We went to the mall to walk around, have lunch, maybe go shopping. Keeping it light for a first date. She was really into her Zom random phase, but I thought it was cute because it wasn't the real her, so I put up with it, but it was exhausting. After lunch, she must have had this amazing idea of playing hide and seek. So when we walked by the elevator, she ran in at the last second and texted me, "Find me XD." I left. Story 25, this didn't happen to me, but a stoner buddy of mine left during the middle of the date because he was high and forgot he was on one. They had smoked up before drinks at his local pub, and she went to use the washroom, wasn't a little too long, and he just plumb forgot he wasn't there alone and went home. This was before cell phones were super common. I'm old, so there was no "where the are you" text. Story 26, he kept glaring at the bartender who was smiling at me while pouring my glass of wine. When I asked the bartender for a recommendation, the guy was not happy that the dude and I were talking. I went into the bathroom and had my friend call me in 5 minutes to pretend to be my roommate locked out of our apartment. Keep in mind that this was the first time we've met face-to-face in first date. Edit no everyone, the two men were not plotting to roofie me. The bartender was smiling at me, being polite, and could tell that the date was not going anywhere since all the dude could talk about was how life-changing a trip he went on 3 years previous was. Story 27, I have done it once. We arranged to meet at a bookstore because that is where I am most comfortable meeting people. When he arrived, he looked nothing like his photo and stood way too close. So close that I couldn't even think of a situation where standing that close to someone is ever acceptable. I decided to walk around, and hopefully my walking around would put some distance. But nope, somehow this guy was able to stay glued to me the entire time. Every question I asked was replied with an "I don't know." Finally, I said I was feeling really uncomfortable and was going to go home. I turn to leave, and I feel his hand go from my shoulder down my back to my hip. It made me cringe so bad I noped out fast. Story 28, met a guy in a mall I worked at. He was cute and shy. After a week of flirting, he asked for my number. I was so stoked. We got a texting, and it turns out we were neighbors. He asked me to go for a walk that night, and I happily said yes. He gave me a creepy vibe within a few minutes of the date starting, so I started planning my out. I told him I had a late-night yoga class, and I had to get home. On the walk to my place, he asked if I wanted to see pictures on his phone. I agreed, thinking that they were going to be pictures of his dog or something. Nope, pictures of naked girls from the internet. Luckily, we made it to my apartment building, and he asked to hug me. I basically ran in the door, and as soon as I was safe inside, I messaged him I wasn't interested in him. He stalked me for months, upwards of 70 texts a day. It took friends showing up and threatening him. Edit, I forgot that he had to talk in a whisper to control his severe stutter. I have a very minor one, so it wasn't a total deal breaker. But looking back on it, totally creepy. Story 29, met girl online. She shows up for our first date drunk, with her drunk friend and 1-month-old son that she had forgot to mention baby was sober, I think. I excused myself to the restroom and ran like I was on fire. Story 30, so this is about 10 years ago. A few friends in another city introduced me and this girl. We call each other, chat on instant messenger, and text a bit. I tell her I'm going to see my friends in a couple weeks, and we set up a dinner date. We met at the restaurant, big hug, and huge grin from her. We sit down, chat, and are talking a bit when two of her friends get seated diagonally from us. She gets up to go say hi, never introduces me, and proceeds to have the waiter drop her food off at their table. Her friends ask why she's leaving me alone, and without any shame, she says he's fine. Waiter comes to pick up my plate ID, already ordered, and I didn't want to be and screw the waiter, and drops off my check, then hands her own check. I just shrugged it off, handed the guy a 20, saying, keep the change, and left. She calls me on my way back to my buddy's house. Me out then had to ask if I'd buy her alcohol to take to a party. I was 21, she was 19. I laughed. She called me and hung up. Then I questioned why I answered the call in the first place. Edit, close my parenthesis. Story 31, guy from OkCupid a few years back. Takes me to a 5-star restaurant. I try to stick to the middle of the road drinks food as a first date. Dinner went really well, so we decide to go for post-dinner drinks. I get to the point where I feel I should stop drinking since it's a first date, and I wasn't really ready for him to see me trashed. He orders me another drink, and then invites me over to his house because his wife is out of town. Date over. Story 32, we were already dating, but I thought it would be nice to take her for a meal one evening. She walked in, followed by her sister, then her best friend, and their respective boyfriends, all of whom had no money. She got upset when I said I didn't have enough money to feed 6 when a meal for 2 would have set me back 40 or more. So I left. She sent me a text on my way home, saying we were over. I didn't bother replying. To this day, I have no idea why she thought it was socially acceptable to bring 4 more people to our date without telling me first. Story 33, I was 19 and accepted a date with an older guy. I thought he was probably 27 or so, but it turns out he's 37. The club where we met danced got my number was sort of dark. We go to dinner, and he starts reminiscing about going parking and making out back in the day, and would I like to go for a drive later. Something I ate gave me a stomachache. Sadly, I had to go home early in a taxi. Story 34, ID met this woman on POF. I know. She was pretty cute, and we shared an interest in 90s pop dash, whatever. We were going to do dinner. She gets hold of me beforehand and asks if I could come eat for drinks first. Sure, I walk into this bar across the parking lot from the restaurant in question and meet her. She's either already drunk or kind of chronically drunk if you follow. She was just kind of gross and off-putting. I remember she played me overplayed radio-wide pop songs on her phone in the middle of a bar, which made me cringe. I tried to put my hand on her leg or something to see if we at least had any physical chemistry, and she snapped at me. I began to realize I was not looking forward to spending a couple more hours and a bunch of money with this person. So when we finished our drinks and she asked if we should go to dinner, I said, let's have one more. Now I'm generally pretty polite and well-mannered, and this kind of thing doesn't come easy to me. So I basically spent that second drink screwing up my courage. And when we were done, I slapped a 20 on the table, said I don't think we're vibing, and walked out while she sat there gaping. She texted me some nasty stuff and bugged me for a couple days until I got through to her that I just didn't like her. And I tell you, the whole thing was one of my most empowering memories of dating, the knowledge that I was in charge of my destiny and didn't have to sit and spend time with someone I didn't want an awesome night, all in all. Edit couple words. Story 35, I've had a girl walk out on me. Took me weeks to realize why. This was date 3. We had met initially at a nightclub randomly. Kind of just said hi, and our groups merged the boys and her girls. Met up a week later at a carnival, and had a great time. This day in particular, we met up for a basic lunch at a nice little spot near my place, and just had nothing to talk about, which was odd. She seemed semi-vacant. Lunch goes by with small talk. We pay separately, and she asked to come back to my place. No problems there. She's an attractive girl, and I have a penis. Anyhow, we get back to my place. She throws on a DVD while I snack up the coffee table, and we start talking about pet peeves with the opposite. Usual things come up first, like toilet seat positioning and get ready time for outings. Somehow it leads on to a story about this girl I knew who was dating me whilst having an actual boyfriend on the side, and how disrespectful it was in the end. She just goes pale white, grabs her stuff, and makes some excuse about forgetting something at home. I thought ID maybe sounded a bit cocky or come across like a douchebag. Kind of felt like it for a day or so, and moved on. My housemate ran into her and her boyfriend shopping a week later. That was awkward. Story 36, not me. But a friend of mine, him and his date are walking down the street, and they see a little girl being excited about something. My friend loves little kids. He melts at anything adorable. Before he can comment on how adorable the kid is, his date goes UGH. Kids are so annoying, he doesn't say anything, because she's a good-looking girl, and he's just going to overlook it, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. So they continue walking down the street, and someone walks by in a Batman shirt. My friend is the biggest Batman fan I know. Like, he will convert Superman fans into Batman fans. Girl comments, "Batman is so stupid. Comics are stupid. It's so nerdy." My friend abruptly stopped, turned around, and just walked off without ever saying a word to her. Story 37, only once actually. TLDR, a sugar-coated rehashing of that one time. I was too good for a girl, white girl that doesn't believe in dinosaurs. Know what a neurotoxin is, or that she's also white. So when I was in my undergrad years, I was studying pre-veterinary medicine. This meant a lot of the people in my major were science nerdy girls. I was a shy kid, but I always sat by this girl, Nicole, in my repro class about pig dicks. Erotic, right? Nicole was quiet, very smart, and well, she had it going on. Dark hair, petite, pale skin. Anyway, I go basically all semester not asking this girl out, and finally I get ballsy. And after class, I just asked her if she would want to get food with me later, and yeah, that worked. Shocked the out of me. I'm all stoked for this date. And I got us reservations at the local Italian restaurant. Nothing fancy, though. Everything is going well until she asks if I have any pets. I tell her about my blind kitten, Ray Charles, and she brings up weed. I had mentioned I smoked occasionally. She goes, "Aren't you worried I'll hurt Ray?" I paused, and I said, "No, I smoke the weed." "What do you mean?" She goes, "Aren't you worried about the neurotoxins from the secondhand smoke hurting Ray?" I was going to correct her, but then I was like, huh. Good point, Ox Silent Strike. 1 bit later, we're talking about our fave movies. I say mine is a tie between Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Jurassic Park. She says she's never seen JP. I asked why, and she straight up says because it's a stupid story and seemed kind of upset. And I said something like yeah, the plot is a bit weak, but the CGI, that was one of the first times people got a good idea of what dinosaurs were like. She's like, haha, yeah, like if they existed, I gotcha. And I was like, yeah, wait, did you say if they existed? Thinking in my head, she meant when you're little, she's like, yeah, if they existed, how do we know for sure? At this point, I couldn't tell if this girl was trolling me or what. I was just dumbfounded. I was like, well, as you may know, we have like a lot of dinosaur bones and fossils. She looks at me and scoffs while saying, scientists could have made those. Strike two. I try to explain that no one would ever fund a project that's sole purpose is to just fathom species that never existed. But she changed the subject. At this point, I realized I made a mistake. This girl was as dumb as a box of rocks outside the classroom. Toward the end of the meal, we are bullshitting and describing our parents. She says both of hers are devout Lutherans, etc. I say my mom is a tiny little Irish holy roller and my dad is a big fat Italian atheist, and I kind of joshed about opposites attracting. She made a sort of half-joke snide remark, which basically was, why did your sweet mom want to marry a stupid guy like your dad? To which I said, because he's a really great guy, and he's really smart. While looking at her food, she chuckles and mutters, he must not be that smart. In my head, I was like, WTF is this? Why am I even here right now? Did she think that would be funny to me? I try to smooth it over with a joke and go, how you know you're much sweeter in class? She takes it literally and goes, why is that? And I say, BC, to be honest, I'm not getting a great first impression. She goes, oh, well, you're just a white boy. Strike three, dropped the 20 on the table and walked out. Edit, wow. Gold. A blig thank you. Shout out, you win zip 115, my man. Also fix the soul typo.